Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. It's the big story making international headlines this hour. Witness reports from Gaza saying there's been a continuous Israeli bombardment of the southern city of Rafah in the hours after Israel rejected Hamas's agreement to a ceasefire deal. Israel says the terms of the proposed deal do not meet its demands, but it will send a delegation to talks in Cairo to try to reach some kind of agreement. Let's get you the latest now. Bring in our correspondent, Sarah Coates, live to us as always from Tel Aviv this morning. Sarah, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. The Israeli Defense Force here being quoted as saying that they have targeted strikes in Rafah and have now taken operational control of the Gaza side of the crossing. What do we know about what happened over the past few hours?
Good morning. Well, the military says it has now taken full control of this Rafah border crossing area. We do have pictures coming in released by the Israeli military of tanks rolling into that area, which now is fairly deserted. This is an area where this vital humanitarian aid has been filtered through from outside into Rafah, but we do understand that this crossing now, the Rafah border crossing, will be closed for the immediate future, with the Israeli military citing security concerns. Now, this is certainly something that was spoken about yesterday between the US President Joe Biden and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during that phone call, with Biden pushing Netanyahu to keep these remaining ground crossings open, given the dire humanitarian situation on the ground. But at this hour, we do know that this Rafah border crossing has closed, and the Israeli military says it's conducting a number of pinpoint operations around that area. It says that in the last few hours, it has killed some 20 gunmen and targeted some 3 strategic tunnel shafts in that Rafah area, which Israel believes is an area that the last 4 remaining Hamas battalions are stationed, and also an area where it believes some of these key senior Hamas figures may be hiding, including the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Yahya Sinwar.
Yeah, that's always been Israel's justification, right? That they're targeting Hamas in these regions and civilians, I suppose, are just casualties of war. Do we know what the sticking points are when it comes to this supposed proposal that's been tabled by Hamas, which Israel has completely rejected as being far from meeting its core demands?
Well, Israel's been saying over the last few hours that this proposal that Hamas agreed to late last night is not the proposal that Israel agreed to. Apparently, we are hearing leaks coming out saying that Hamas was actually trying to release some of these hostages, but this included bodies of hostages. Israel wanted 33 living hostages in the first round of these phased negotiations, but Hamas wanted to put in some bodies of those hostages who have been deceased. Now, another one of these major sticking points that really we have been seeing time and time again throughout all of these negotiations is the end to the war. Hamas wants a full comprehensive ceasefire and guarantees of that, which is something that Israel will not agree to at this stage. But what we do need to remember here is that the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he is under immense pressure. He's under pressure from the international community and his closest allies like the United States, who are really pushing him to come to some sort of an agreement, any agreement with Hamas to see an end to this war and release these remaining Israeli hostages. Well, on the other hand, the Prime Minister Netanyahu is under immense pressure from the far-right flank of his government, the flank that actually keeps him in power, namely Itamar Ben-Gvir, the National Security Minister, and also the Finance Minister, Bezalel Smotrich. Now, these two people have been threatening to walk away from the government, to collapse the coalition if Netanyahu makes what they're calling an irresponsible deal with Hamas, and also if he fails to go down into this area of Rafah, where the Israeli military is now without some force. But then we have, on the other hand, the families, of course, of these 132 Israeli hostages that are believed to be alive in the Gaza Strip. They've been demonstrating here in Israel overnight outside the military headquarters in Tel Aviv, demanding that Netanyahu do a deal and do it now to bring these people home.
Yeah. Would you say, Sarah, that the sentiment around the ongoing conflict in and around Israel, perhaps more specifically in Tel Aviv, is changing at all? I mean, I think you've done a great job at kind of painting the picture for us around the kind of considerations Netanyahu must be making in isolation. But what kind of pressure, if any, is coming from the general public, from people in Israel who are no doubtedly watching what's actually unfolding and maybe still concerned about their own lives?
It's certainly been changing over the past months. I'll give you the results of a poll that was just conducted here in Israel. 54% of the Israeli public actually believe that coming to an agreement to see a ceasefire and to see these hostages brought home is far more important than any military operation. Now, people on the ground are extremely worried. They believe that any military operation down in this densely populated area of Rafah will not only have shocking effects on the Palestinians that are sheltering there, but they also believe that this kind of military action could actually see more hostages killed in being caught up in this fighting than the actual target, which would be these Hamas militants. So there certainly is growing pressure on Netanyahu, but a lot of people here really believe that he's making these decisions to save his political career. And what we do need to remember is he is the only senior Israeli figure who so far has not come out to claim any kind of complicity, I think you could say, or any kind of involvement, saying that he should have been aware of what was going to happen on October 7, and he hasn't really taken any actions to apologise for that. So there certainly is growing anger against the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu here in Israel.
Yeah, all of this while talks continue in Cairo. We know that Israel has decided to send a delegation to sit in those talks, hopefully with the attempt to find a solution. One can only wonder what the dynamic of these talks are, given what's taking place in Rafah and given, of course, all the pressure that's mounting there at home in Israel.
Well, I certainly think these talks today, they will be extremely urgent. They're coming at an extremely sensitive time, and these mediating parties like Qatar and Egypt, and also, of course, the United States with the CIA Director Bill Burns still here in the region, they will really try to get something moving today, get something happening in terms of a deal, and get these warring parties to agree to some sort of framework. Because, of course, as I mentioned, the area now that the Israeli military is operating down in Rafa is that area that was declared a safe zone some months ago by the Israeli military. And we've got down there more than 1.3 million internally displaced people packed into an extremely small area. And they say that these places that the military is now telling them to go, to Al-Mawasi, which is on the coast on the Mediterranean Sea down in the southern part of Gaza, and also to Khan Yunis, these people say that there's simply no place safe to go, and they say where they're being directed to go has absolutely no infrastructure or ways to support such a large volume of people. So, of course, there's certainly urgency and fear as to what could happen to these people if a deal isn't agreed to very soon.
Absolutely. Certainly a lot of moving parts. Sarah Coates, for now, thanks very much indeed. Sarah is our correspondent live just there from Tel Aviv in Israel.